All right, recorded start.
Okay. We're going to just do some quick intros. My name is Elise Taylor Liebert. I'm the manager of the Portland Film Office, now the Portland Events and Film Office, who's presenting this grant. The post-production grant, I'm losing track, but 2018 is when it started. So 2018 took 2 years off in 2020 and 2021. And so we're back for, I think this is our sixth or seventh annual post-production grant. And there's always, it's lovely to see new faces and get some new perspective in the grant. And that is also due to having a grant coordinator. So Lisa, I'll pass it to you to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. Elisa Barrios, she, they pronouns. I am supporting the Portland Events and Film Office as a contractor, grant support, coordination, kind of all things on the back end. So if you have questions throughout the process or getting stuck on anything not working, I would be the person that's likely responding to through the email that is on the application. So feel free to reach out if you have any questions at all.
Yeah. And if you guys wouldn't mind, if you guys just want to put your name, maybe your pronouns, and what you do in the chat, that would be awesome. We can get to know who's behind the camera and who we're working with. Nice to meet you, Bunny. Michaela.
Oh,
Hi,
you guys
Matt.
are writing it down.
Yeah, just in the chat, it's fine.
Hi, Joni. I didn't know that. I was like, who is Alchemy 3 Productions? Low Trees.
I need to change this, but
I love it. Hi, Crispin.
Hi.
Hello, Heather. Jesus. All right. I think we got everybody. Wendy, I see you. I don't see your name yet. Okay. You guys can feel free to put those in the chat. Continue to, both Elise and I will be monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, like, it's a small group too, so feel free to raise your hand or put the question in the chat. We'll make sure we get to it. Thanks so much, Wendy. So we're gonna, spend this next hour together. It may not take an hour depending on, how quickly we go through things and how many questions we have, but we're really just gonna take this hour to go through the grant. So, our office, particularly Portland Events and Film Office, is here to really highlight and showcase Portland's like cultural landscape, celebrate the diversity of our talent, businesses and communities in the entertainment, event, and film industries. We provide resources, support, grant, sponsorships. We now have a new newsletter. You guys got to sign up for it. It has all kind of things like resources, jobs, all of that fun stuff. We partner with our stakeholders like Oregon Film and Travel Portland, and a bunch of different independent production companies. And so we're really just going to go over this post-production grant in particular and give you an overview of eligibility, the program goals, applications, and then the timeline. I think a lot of what we get from these Q&As are really people asking questions about their specific projects and eligibility, which is totally fine. That's what we're here for. And again, it's a small group, so feel free to like get into the nitty gritty. If you're like, well, it's this, but not this and this, we will answer it as honestly as possible. So I'll pass it on to Elisa to start talking about the grant overview.
Yeah. All All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put in the chat the link that will also take you directly to the information that I'm sharing, so you don't have to take notes on this section. Most everything that I'm going to be sharing is already on the website, or actually in the application. As you walk through the application, it's going to re-ask you eligibility questions to make sure you're not submitting for a grant you're not eligible for. But just as an overview, we're excited to offer this grant again in partnership with Travel Portland. And just so folks know, the funding is specifically designed to encourage a completion of local feature-length films. Sorry, my dogs come over here right at this time. And we're really intending to build a larger, more resourceful production recognition in Portland. So just noting that the emphasis on Portland and productions services spent in Portland is one of the biggest emphasis of this grant. We're excited to offer a bit larger of a grant award this year. So there will be grants awarded of up to $8,500. And hold on, let somebody in who's in the waiting room.
Can I pause really quick? Before we go into eligibility and process, when it comes to the grant funding, we actually, every single year that we do this grant, we have a debrief and feedback with not only the panelists, but some of the recipients. And one of the reasons we are able to move some funding around is typically we have the pot of money that needs to be spent in post-production. And then you'll see in the grant agreement, there's a very small portion that is for marketing. We've doubled that amount to be $1,000. So essentially what we're looking at is you spending $7,500 on their post-production services and then $1,000 on marketing. Why? Because we're finding that even after you picture lock, there's a ton of expenses with that, right? As you all know, it's whether it's distribution, whether even submitting to film festivals, whether it's having a screening, whether it's paying for a PR or a sales agent, all of those things cost a lot of money. And there's no grant right now that really addresses those funds. And so we're hoping that that additional $1,000 can really complete your film, not just in post-production, but then what happens after. So I just wanted to add that there is a stipulation on how that money is spent. And you would see that in the grant agreement. Sorry, go ahead, Elisa.
Yeah, no, that was really good to point that out. So as far as eligibility goes, just we're going to make sure your productions are Portland based, and we've extended that to Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah County. Productions must be feature length. So feature length we're defining as 60 minutes or longer. Productions must use the funds that if you receive from this grant on Portland based post-production vendors and services. And then the funds must be in post-production by December 31st. The productions must be in post-production by December 31st, 2025. And then recipients of this grant awarded within the past 2 calendar years are ineligible to apply. And then some of the things that we're going to be basing the scoring on, for one, of course, again, it has to be feature length, Portland based, meet the criteria for eligibility. And then we'll have a scoring panel made up of industry professionals, past recipients, city staff, and then we'll be scoring on the following criteria: diverse representation in film and or production, impact of the film on local talent and economy, influence of funding on the project and or the career of the applicant, and potential for the film to have national impact and visibility.
I'm going to pause there for just a couple seconds. Yeah. We get a lot of confusion on some of these. And I think it's really good. We go over this with our panel in terms of what these mean, but I think it's also really important to kind of give applicants a heads up to understand what the criteria is that they'll be scored on. I feel like, right, diversity representation in film or in production, that's really self-explanatory, but we're also looking for ways to see who are you hiring as your crew, who are you using catering, who are you utilizing small businesses, all of that inclusive in that question. The 2 things that we get, I think the most confusion on are the impact of the film on local talent and economy, and then the influence of funding on the project and or career of the applicant. So what we mean by the impact on local talent and economy. For instance, I see we have a lot of documentary filmmakers here. If you do a documentary that films for 4 days in Portland, and then you have to go to your talent in Budapest and you're gone for 50 days, your project is probably not going to score as high on supporting the local economy and the local talent as, say, a feature film that filmed here for 20 days and featured all local crew and cast. We really, again, are trying to promote higher quality, larger, bigger films in Portland. And so keeping the funding and the revenue and the support of local is really important to us in this grant. The other thing is influence on funding on the project and or talent. We have a total, like a huge plethora of skill sets when we see these production grants. And although obviously the panel is going to choose and evaluate the films that they think are going to, you know, be wildly successful and beautifully made and all of that good stuff, we also are looking to see, is this 8,500 going to change this person's career? Is the mentorship and the technical assistance going to get them to that next step? Does this person need that grant, right? Like, are they already getting 15 other grants from everybody else and they already have the funding? And so that really, and the production, you know, we've had really good cases of showing kind of the indie films that we've supported through this grant, and just seeing the places that we've gone. And I don't know if they would have been able to get there had they not gotten the grant. And so all of that stuff kind of weighs in. But I do think it's important for you guys to have the more knowledge that you can in terms of what the panelists are evaluating before you submit, so that you can really put thought into how you're presenting your film. And yeah, does anyone have any questions about that?
Yes, actually.
Yep.
I'm going to do this regardless of if I get the grant or not. I'm doing it with 0, which is always, and so does that come through? Is that communicated well enough that it's happening?
Yeah, you mean you're doing it with 0 funding?
Yes.
Okay. Well, and I think in part of the application process is to submit a budget. So why we ask that is exactly for the reason that you just brought up. Now, if somebody has a $300,000 film, which we've seen like anywhere from 15,000 to 300,000 in these post-production grants and above, actually, if you're starting at 15,000 to make your film and you have no money, 8,500 is half of that. It's going to go a long way. If you have $300,000 budget and you've gotten no money or no funds or no, you know, Seed and Spark or Kickstarter or any sort of independent investment to get you there, that 85 is not going to go very far. So we have to think about, is that film actually going to get made? We hope every film gets made, right? But the reality is we want to support films that are for sure going to get made. So I think it just depends. I think the most important thing that you said, Therese, was like, you're making it regardless, which you should. And I also tell people, submit always. Like, you just never know. And we never know. We never know what films we're going to get. So like, submit your film. But in terms of budget, we do need to see some sort of timeline of process for funding a film. Because at the end of the day, the number one goal is that these films get made and they're out there for everyone to see. So yeah.
I would add also that, you know, the budget doesn't have a specific form that you need to use or anything. So if you need to add an explanation in there as far as how you are determining where the rest of that funding is going to go, that's going to help the panel understand, like, where's the rest of the funding coming? If you get the $8,500 grant from us, how are you funding the rest of it? And kind of what's your timeline for that, or what will you do to still make the film, even if you have to cut your budget down significantly, just if this was the only funding you received, for example. So there's places that you can explain that as well. We have another question from Bunny.
Yes, so I think I have kind of a unique situation. So this year, well, last year, 2023, I completed at the beginning of 2024, a short film, which was really act 1 and 2 of a 4-act feature. Continuing, it's been through the film festival, got the awards, the recognition, whatever, because it was my first film. That's the way I did it. Now, continuing on to act 3 and 4. I would like to say that this is post on that, but it's not. It's continuing to build because we're using the same actor growing between these years. My question is that probably makes me ineligible this year because we won't be ready for post by December 2025. We're aiming to be in post summer 2026. So assuming that this is a yearly annual type of grant, that's probably a better time for me to apply. So my basic question is, how long is post? I mean, how long can you start post and complete the film? Is there a restriction in terms of how long you take? Because theoretically, if I'd known about this grant in 2024, I could have applied. Well, no, there's the definition again. Is it a short or is it a feature? You know, so I'm kind of mixing that up. So it's a little confusing. So if I'm right now funding 3 and 4, it's part of a feature, but I have footage done already in 2024 that I'm talking about.
Yeah. And I mean, if you were to submit it, let's say this year, would be submitting, let's say act 1, 2, and 3. That adds up to 60 minutes or more.
Yeah.
And you would have to be in post for act 3 or part 3 by December of 2025.
Right.
You are not, there's no date for picture lock, if that's what you're asking.
Right.
So if you spent these funds by December, if you spent $8,500 on editing by December of 2025.
Just on act 3, even though I still had act 4 to go.
Yeah.
That isn't not necessarily would be funded. Act 3 might be funded by itself.
Right. You would, the panelists would be judging the product on act 1, 2, and 3. But you couldn't be in production on act 3. But again, I mean, we have the Amplify Portland grant, which is in the fall, which is for shorts, animation, doc. It's for everything. It's not just for feature length. That starts usually in September. So that's right around the corner. And then we do have this next year again. And we know that we have this next year again. It's not up for budget.
Okay. Is there a list of the grants that? Okay. And where do I get that?
I will put that in the chat.
That'd be great.
Put the link for the Amplify Portland.
Oh, just that specific grant.
Yeah,
Is there an overall general grant, a list of grants available to local filmmakers?
I just put the chat or the link that should show you all of the grants that our office offers. Some of them are going to be event specific because it's a mix of event and film grants. But you'll also see a grant for film festivals and screenings. So something to consider too for people who are getting close to that screening phase of funding.
And is where this is all coming from Portland Events and Film, what is it, Commission, or what is the name of the
office?
Okay, so
this is not like holistically every film grant in the state or city. There are some other grants. I think Elisa could probably put a list together, but we also have it in our newsletter as well, like a list of upcoming grants. So we can definitely put that in the chat and make sure you guys sign up for the newsletter, because we do that once a month and it has a list of all different grants and not just coming from our office. So
and how do we sign up for the newsletter?
Yeah, I'll have Elisa put that in the chat.
Okay. I have to say, the short version, Acts 1 and 2, were really embraced everywhere except Portland in Oregon. For
Mhm.
some reason, I couldn't get into film festivals here for some reason. Is not sure why. I mean, we won grand prizes and Panavision camera grant, you know, and all this stuff. But I'm curious, and this may be another conversation, and maybe I'll call the office and talk to somebody, but as to why Portland didn't embrace Portland created productions.
Yeah, it's interesting. We should definitely talk offline. We have a handful of really great festivals. Teresa and I were just talking about one that's coming up here. So I feel like, yeah, feel free. I'll put my
Would
information
love to discuss that.
and
Yeah,
Elisa's in the chat so we can chat offline.
great. Okay, that's all I have. So I probably should just sign off then and explore all this stuff.
Yeah,
Because
if you
I'm
want, or you can
eligible.
stay on and listen
Okay.
and yeah,
All right.
whatever,
Okay.
whatever.
I'll get out of the way. Thank you.
You're very
And
welcome.
and I'll grab those in the chat. Thank you.
You're welcome. Jesus, you have your hand up?
Hi, yeah. I have a question. The project that I have in mind for this grant is a passion project, but I do own a production company. Can I hire my production company to do the post-production with this grant?
Yeah, as long as they are
Yeah,
in Portland.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Oh, cool. Perfect.
Yeah, we don't actually, we do end up verifying who you're going to use for post.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to provide if you were awarded receipts, but we
Mhm.
do tend to get those in the impact report 9 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, it's just keeping work in Portland for post. So if your company's based here, I don't see why not.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Elisa, do you want to go on to process?
Yeah, I'm just going to go over the kind of next steps and what to expect. So right now we're in the Q&A session. The grant application is not open yet, so you're not going to be able to actually visit and look at the application until it opens at 8 a.m. on Wednesday, March 26th. And then just keep in mind that it will close at midnight on April 14th, 2025. So try to get it in before the last second because we can't accept anything after that deadline unless for some reason like a link was incorrect. You can always send us the correct link. Again, then we'll have the panel begin to do a review process of all of the submissions, and then recipients and anyone who applied will be notified of acceptance or denial by Tuesday, May 13th.
Elisa, I have a question. Does the application save? What happens if my computer crashes? Does it save?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't actually think in the portal that we created it saves, but I can double check. So I would recommend that you actually copy paste your answers from another document. And I would recommend that with any grant, just because you never know what's going to happen with a grant portal. And sometimes it doesn't go through when you hit submit, and that's the saddest thing ever if you lose all of your hard work. So just pull up another document, copy paste your answers from that, and then you'll have that in case something doesn't show up, or if we need to reach out and say, hey, this text didn't show up. And you want to use plain text, like no special formatting or anything in the grant application. So it'll all show up nice and clean on the end of the evaluators.
That was kind of a trick question for Elisa. The answer is no.
Because I can't get it to send me a copy of it.
It doesn't. It does not. It doesn't. So I think we've had a lot of people in the past say that they started it and they didn't finish it and they got and this is like usually after the cutoff. If you have any questions or issues with links or wanting to see that email, the OEF grants it's like save that. Elisa will answer all of your questions and she'll be able to look into the application. And if something's broken, if a link is broken, we'll be able to see. Speaking of that as well, we have a lot of issues with links. Please, if you are using a Vimeo for your production, make sure that if it's password protected, you add the password as you add the link. So most people will say like Vimeo82345.com, and then they'll put password tomato right next to it. That way, when the panel goes to open it, they can copy the Vimeo link and see the password right there. So I would make sure that you test your links, make sure that they can upload. If you're worried about, again, watermarking or anything like that, if they're open, just make sure they're password protected. We don't obviously show these films to anyone else other than the panel. So you will, between April 6th and March or May 6th, you will see various people looking at your films, but other than that, nobody else should be looking at your films if they're not ready to go. We talked about budget. Again, it's really about feasibility. I have to say that in the last 5 years or so, we've had maybe only 2 to 3 films out of, let's say, the 15 that have not come out. And I think that's a pretty good target. And it's 60 minutes, Wendy. Yeah, thanks. We really want to make sure that productions come out and that we can see them as well. So again, it's about feasibility. So make sure your budget and your timeline are feasible. And then we also, I think, again, I'm just thinking about docs. The major eligibility is that your doc or your post-production needs to be in Portland, Washington, Clackamas, and Multnomah. If you film a little bit outside, that's okay. However, it's really important that you understand that as the Portland office, I think that films do tend to do really well that are filmed majority in Portland. We've had some really, really fantastic, especially documentaries that were filmed majority in Boston, but they may have had a Portland subject and a Portland production house. We've had films that were filmed in California, but were based in Portland production, and they were beautiful films, but at the end of the day, compared to something that was based and filmed and crewed up in Portland, they didn't end up making the top 3, 4, or 5. So
it's also
yeah,
to say that the film has to be like completely recognizable as Portland. We've had submissions where they were entirely filmed in Portland, and maybe if you watched it, you wouldn't even know it was Portland. Could be anywhere, but still the fact that it's highlighting Portland and its locations is one of the priorities. So doesn't mean you have to go out and film a bunch of stuff that's saying recognizing Portland with Portland in the background, signs or anything like that. It's just the fact that we're highlighting and celebrating all the different diverse locations of Portland.
Yeah.
You want to open it up to questions, more questions?
Matthew?
Yeah. Since we're on the topic of, the sort of specifics of like filmed in Portland or how much and post-production, like I thought I'd explain the scenario for the film that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
So none of our film was shot in Portland, but all of our post-production is happening in Portland.
Yeah. We've had a ton of films like that.
Okay. Okay.
We've had
So it's like maybe worth submitting just to kind of see, like.
I think so. I
Okay.
mean, we had, I can tell you now because they're done, but we had like the breakup season last year that was filmed entirely in LeGrand. It finished and just got distribution, and it was fantastic. Again, it was up, I think, in our top 10, maybe, Elisa, last year, but it just, it didn't hit for the panelists. We did have a winner recipient last year, 5 Weeks in Silverton, which was a documentary based in Silverton, Oregon. They did all of their posts obviously in Portland. And they actually ended up having a New York or LA, I forget, director. And so, you know, it really depends. So I think you should. I think you should apply. I think that going back to the history of this grant, it was because we were seeing a lot of productions being made from outside coming into film in Portland, but then they would leave again to LA and do their post. And so this grant was actually less about the production versus keeping post alive in Portland, and giving more work to all of the wonderful people that do post. So if we go to the history of why we created this grant, that is why, is really to focus on those specialty niche jobs that are in post. But yes, when it comes down to it, they will tend to, I hear it every time, the panelists will argue, you know, well, how many people in Portland did they apply, or how many people did they employ? Was there any money spent in Portland? You know what I mean? Like, the impacts on the local economy are going to show if your film has nothing or was not filmed at all in Portland.
That makes sense. Thanks. That's
Yeah.
super helpful.
And in that case too, you know, just if you're still planning on applying, emphasize the other aspects of the scoring. So if you might have stronger areas of scoring,
Oops.
sorry, thank you. You'll want to emphasize those sections, because it's not like all the scores going to go to one part of the scoring criteria. That's only like a quarter of the scoring. So some films will score really high, like in that Portland area, but then really low in some of the other areas. So just emphasize how you're beating the other scoring criteria if you are maybe going to be a little lower on the aspect of Portland.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Or if you're done.
Yeah, go ahead.
With all, like, I always have to ask this in these kind of situations, like, with all other things being equal, if I was to either use stock footage, stock sounds, or pay someone maybe for a little bit more within Portland to do the Folly for the narrative film, which do you think just would give me a better score? Just, you know, paying for sound effects, or, you know, musical transitions, or, you know, from a stock site, or, you know, farming that here in town.
Are you? Oh,
I would say that it sort of really depends on sort of when you're looking at the rest of how your money is spent. I'm getting a little delay there.
Oh, feedback. Sorry, I'm too close to the speaker.
Okay. So if you're thinking about like the impact on local talent economy, if you are wanting to sort of figure out how to prioritize the rest of your funds for your post-production, and you don't have a lot of emphasis on employing local talent, then that would definitely be something you might prioritize spending on. But if you already have, you know, spent or are planning to spend a lot of other money on local post-production, and it's just the sound effects and Foley, maybe it's not as big of a deal that every single thing is spent on that. It's just that the grant funds for this specific grant, if awarded, can only be spent on Portland-based production support. So it doesn't mean you couldn't spend other fund, like if you have other money from other funds or
Okay.
grants, you could spend that.
Okay.
Whatever you want.
Okay, that answers that. I'll probably think of some other follow-up question later. Thank you though.
Sure. Let's see, Jesus, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I'm not done with the production part of my documentary, and I'm reading that the grant funds must be spent by December 31st. That means, can I finish my documentary the latest in the next couple of months, and then, or how that can work?
yeah. So we also get submissions in all types of varying form. Some people have given us dailies, like 4 hours of dailies. Some people have given us a sizzle reel and a trailer.
Gotcha.
The people who typically receive these grants give us 60 plus minutes of some sort of formulated film.
Mhm.
With that being said, documentaries aside, you know, I would say gather as much footage as you can when you submit,
Mhm.
and whatever you need to do in terms of post in December, because that's 9 months away. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's weird.
Mm.
9, 8. I'm sure at that point you will need to do something in post for your film and be able to spend. I always say to people, like, no filmmaker has trouble spending money, right? Like,
Yeah.
you guys will all find some way to spend $8,500 on your film in post-production or post-production services
Yeah.
by December. I have no doubt that I could give you each the check today and you would find something to do it. I think it's more about what you're submitting to the panel in order for them to believe that you're going to have a finished product in the next year.
So just to recap, if I build like a teaser or a trailer,
Yeah.
like for the deadline of the,
Mhm.
that will be like a good tool to like try to get the grant.
Yeah, that's by April 6th.
Uh-huh.
When it closes, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, again, I've watched
Mhm.
thousands and thousands of footage. The ones that typically win are the ones that are most in complete form. I'm just being honest, only because it's really hard for a panel to see
Mhm.
where this goes. We have, I talk about Amplify Portland Grant a lot because it's so different in the sense that you can be in pre-production,
Mhm.
production, post-production, and then we ask for just a statement of interest.
Mhm.
We would ask you to just talk about your projects. That grant that opens in September, October is a lot more, it has a lot more wiggle room.
Okay.
This one is very specific for finishing a feature length film. And so, you know, again, shoot your shot, send whatever you can. But I think if, especially like we're talking about a film grant, visual is always going to be more important than the words on the page.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's important to just put together as much footage as you can, whatever phase it's in. If you have like an interview
Mhm.
that really, you know, shows your subject and like explains what your film is going to be about, I think those are really powerful.
Mhm.
Even if they're not edited, and those can also, I think, tend to be more powerful than putting together a teaser that's like 2 minutes.
Okay.
So just
Yeah.
something to think.
Submit a teaser and also, you know, up to your 60 minutes of footage if you want. So you might as well just submit both.
Okay.
To help your grant application.
Sweet. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions coming up for folks?
Well, you guys, again, Elisa's chat or Elisa's email is OEFgrants, stands for Office Events and Film, grants at portlandeventsandfilm.com. Look on our website. It'll be live 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Please feel free to ask Elisa questions. I will probably not be able to answer any questions because I am evaluating, so I won't be able to give my unbiased opinions, but I'm so looking forward to seeing your projects. I hope you all submit. Bunny, do you have your hand up? Oh, and I will put my email. I will put my email in the chat as well. If you guys want to email me, and Bunny, feel free to email me. We can talk more about grants and film festivals at a later date. And again, this is going to be recorded and it will be on our website. If you have any friends that have questions, feel free to email us as well. All right. Okay.
I do have one question, and this is maybe, I haven't read all the entry for this version, but for the Amplify grant, is there an emphasis placed on people who actually create a video to answer all the questions versus written?
Yeah, I mean, I think I just love seeing people's faces. I like you get a lot of personality and passion behind it. Like there's a ton of, it's so fun to see videos. I think most people honestly did their statement of interest in a video.
Okay.
For the Amplify grant.
Yeah, not for this one, but
Yeah, that's rough.
The Amplify one gives you an option of doing either written or video. This one is just a kind of a brief written statement.
Mhm.
But I suppose if somebody really wanted to submit a video, we'd look at that too.
Okay.
guys, thank you so much. If you have any other questions, you know where to reach us. Again, good luck. Thank you
Thanks
guys.
for doing this.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for the questions and answers.